Here's how easy it is to integrate our 485 gateway TRO.Y with Crestron SIMPL. Don't forget, make sure you've programmed all the devices within TRO.Y prior to beginning this process. Begin by opening TRO.Y's dashboard, which you can access by entering TRO.Y's IP address into the web browser. Click on Integration Settings and verify that the Telnet server settings are accurate. The Telnet server interface must be enabled, the Telnet TCP port must be port 23, and you must set the username and password for the Telnet server, which can be anything you want. Click Submit, and then power cycle the TRO.Y to apply the settings. Once complete, go to TRO.Y's integration table. This is where all the motor integration ID information will reside, and you'll need this to properly configure the Crestron modules. In this scenario, let's use the ST.FI DC1 motor, which has an integration ID of 001003, and we'll use this group, RS485 Group 1, which has an integration ID of FF0000. Now, let's move to the Crestron side of things. Once you have downloaded and unzipped the TRO.Y drivers, these are the files that you'll see. We will be working with the SMW file. This module has been specifically created for CP3. You can use this module with any other Crestron processor, just make sure to configure the module for this specific processor. Next, open the SMW file. Within the logic folder, we will see 3 items: Command Processor, which is for your Crestron processor settings, Endpoint Control Single, which is for an individual shade motor, and Endpoint Control Group, which will be for any groups created in the system. Begin by double-clicking the Command Processor. Make sure the IP address is set correctly and their username and password are configured as they are on the TRO.Y. Poll frequency is set to 1, which represents 1 second, and the Command Processor ID should always be the default. This should only be changed if there are multiple processors in the system. Next, we have the Endpoint Control Single module, which is for the individual shade. The only thing we need to do here is set the device ID. This can be found by going into TRO.Y's integration table. The motor that we're working with is the ST.FI DC1, which has an integration ID of 001003. This is what you'll put into the device ID, and this is the only piece of information that's needed to configure that motor. Finally, click on the Endpoint Control Group module, which is for groups of shades. The group ID is what we are looking for, which can be found by going into TRO.Y's integration table. The group we are working with is RS485 Group 1, which has an integration ID of FF0000. This is what you'll put into the group ID box. There's also a device ID section. This doesn't have to be used, but if you wanted to track the status of the group, you would choose one motor that would report the movements and stop positions. In this situation, let's use the 001003 motor. Anytime a movement command is set to the group, that motor is going to report the status for the entire group. Once we've configured all of our shades and groups, click on the Convert Compile button towards the top of the screen. We are using the CP3, which has an IP address of 192.168.1.200, so we'll click OK. Once everything is complete, let's transfer the files. Click Transfer Program. Select Crestron CP3, make sure the address is correct, and click OK. Make sure Send Signal File is checked, and click Send. Depending on the size of the project, this could take between 30 seconds to a few minutes to complete. Once everything is finished, hit Close, and then we're going to test things out. Open the toolbox, click OK, and now we're going to sync everything. Do you want to synchronize the state of all signals? Choose Yes. Now, let's validate that we have good communication. On the left part of the screen, expand the All Program Signals folder and scroll down until you find the motor. Let's test the up command. So find Motor Up Press, click the middle icon with the yellow glow, and we can see that the motor has sent and received the commands, and all positions have been reported. Let's do the same thing for Motor Down Press. And we can see that everything is looking good here too. we have validated that everything is functioning perfectly. And that's how easy it is to integrate TRO.Y with Crestron SIMPL.